Hello and welcome to the video. Within this video guide I'll be giving you everything you need to brew this very tasty American amber ale that offers some extra bold hop flavours while still remaining true to the style. So let's get started. Let's begin with a look at this recipe's vital statistics. As you can see, the recipe offers an approximate ABV of 5%, making it a nice session beer that can be enjoyed without the concern of too much alcohol. The BU-GU ratio shown almost at the bottom shows the relationship between bitterness and alcohol at 0.59, which offers an easy drinking beer without too much in the way of bitterness. The recipe can be found in full within the video's description, which is underneath the video window when viewed on a desktop computer. You will also find a link there to the recipe in full on Brewhouse, which can be used free of charge with some restrictions. For the best results, I strongly suggest that you fully convert the recipe before ordering in your ingredients so that you're actually brewing the recipe as it is intended. I also strongly suggest that you brew this recipe as is the first time, rather than tweaking it or making changes, as tweaks are already in place to bring this recipe into a very good shape. Otherwise the work I have done here is rather a waste of time. I have an easy guide to recipe conversion using Brewhouse on my channel as shown on screen now. Within this video this recipe is being brewed using a Brewhouse 4 brewing system to the volume of 10 litres or 2.64 US LQD Gallons, but as part of the conversion process this can be scaled and shaped to suit your own brewing system and volume requirements. Shown on screen now is the water profile that I recommend for using with this recipe, which is a balanced profile that works very well with this recipe. Using the right water profile is of course very important. After all, beer is mostly water and its balance is vital so that it suits the beer style that you are brewing. Naturally, this water profile is just one way to go here. If you have a different profile that you really enjoy with this kind of beer style, then go with that. But do bear in mind that this recipe was written with this profile in mind and has been tweaked according to the results obtained whilst using this water profile. Brewhouse has extremely good documentation on how to use the software to make the necessary water changes too, which makes the whole process very easy. I suggest that all brewers, irrespective of experience, start treating their water as soon as possible for the very best of end results. You may be surprised how easy this actually is. Let's now get into the brew itself. This starts by adding all the grain to preheated mash water and then give them a good mix to ensure there are no clumps and that every grain is wet. For this task I'm using Kegland's malt mixer with a drill for speed and efficiency, but you may also use a mash paddle and go the manual route too. Once you've given all the grains a good mixing, then you're ready to start the mash. The mash schedule is now shown on screen. Our mash is controlled by temperature, and as such higher temperatures like those being used by this recipe will ensure that more unfermentable sugars that our yeast will not be able to eat will be created for the right balance for this beer style within the intended result. This will not mean that the recipe lends to be a sweet beer, simply one that is not as dry as some other beers. Let's now take a look at the all-important grain bill for this one. Firstly, we have pale ale malt, which is our base malt, the foundation of the beer, and used at 83% of the grain bill. It's a clean, lightly malty grain with a subtle bread and biscuit note. It's pale in name and pale in colour, so it won't darken the beer, but it will provide the bulk of the fermentable sugars driving your alcohol content. Think of this as a blank canvas that the rest of the speciality malts will paint onto. Used at 5% in this recipe, caramel or crystal 50 adds a toffee-like sweetness and a richer amber hue. At 50 EBC it will deepen the colour to a warm gold or light copper. It also contributes unfermentable sugars, so you will get a slightly fuller body and a touch of residual sweetness, which is great for balancing hop bitterness. Our biscuit malt in this recipe is all about flavour depth and is used at 5% of the grain bill too. Biscuit malt gives a toasted bread crust character, nutty, slightly dry, with a hint of biscuit, like snap. It won't actually add in much sweetness, but it will layer in a complex malt backbone that makes the beer taste more rounded. Then we have Munich malt at a further 5%. Munich malt is a malt flavour booster. It's rich, malty and a bit sweet with a touch of bread and honey. At 20 EBC it adds a subtle golden colour shift, but the real magic is how it amplifies the overall malt richness. Then lastly, at the remaining 2% of our grain bill we have Carafa Special, which is a dehusked chocolate malt. At 1400 EBC it's almost black, but because it's dehusked it has deep colour and a hint of chocolate and coffee, without the harsh burnt bitterness of regular roasted barley or regular chocolate malts either. Used at just 2%, it darkens the beer and adds a subtle roasted complexity in the far background. It was then time for the sparge. This is an important step where we rinse the grain bed after the mash and at the same time top up the volume. Sparging washes out the leftover sugars from the grains and adds them to the wort. If you skip it or rush it, you will leave good fermentable sugar behind and your efficiency drops. Done right, sparging means more flavour, better alcohol yield and less waste from your grain bill. Onto the boil now, and our first task is to stir in the foam on top so that the containing protein is kept within the beer but the solids drop down into the brewing system. Once this is done, we can then start the boil timer, which as per usual is the modern boil time of 30 minutes to promote better flavour. Here is a look at the hop schedule for this recipe, and you can see that I'm using a combination of Centennial and Mosaic hops here for the boil, but this one also uses Amarillo hops for the dry hop, which I will cover later. So let's now look at the qualities that these three hops will actually bring to this beer. Here is a chart from Hop Control that shows the different characteristics of these three hops. Centennial, shown in orange, offers big resin, pine floral and citrus qualities. Often called Super Cascade, it brings bright citrus, lots of lemon and grapefruit, and just enough floral notes to lift the whole beer. It's crisp and zesty. Mosaic, shown in blue, is less extreme but excels in the berry region, but also pushes pretty hard in resin, pine, citrus and tropical fruit. This is a modern hop powerhouse. You get a punch of tropical fruit, mango, passion fruit, even blueberry, all wrapped in a slightly dank, earthy edge. Mosaic fills out the middle with a juicy depth. Amarillo, shown in green, pushes extreme floral elements but also has a strong tropical fruit side. Amarillo adds a sweet fresh orange and tangerine note with a touch of floral character. It softens the sharp edges of Centennial and complements the tropical hit from Mosaic. When you put these three together, you create a beer that's bursting with citrus and tropical fruit that is balanced by a little floral and earthy complexity. After the boil, I cooled the wort down to the hop stand temperature of 80 degrees Celsius or 176 degrees Fahrenheit using my spiral immersion chiller. The stirring you see me doing here speeds that process up nicely. I then added the Whirlpool hops and gave them a good stir, leaving them for a total time of 10 minutes. Just before cooling and transfer, I sprayed my clean and sanitary fermentation vessel with a no-rinse sanitizer using Kegland's Power Sprayer. I then started cooling and transfer using a counterflow chiller directly into my fermenter. My yeast of choice for this recipe is California Owl Yeast by White Labs, but if you cannot obtain this, then Fermentis US05 or Lallemand BRY 97 West Coast Owl will also work well. Be sure to transfer on top of your yeast to rehydrate it as you see me doing here. This is a great way to get things started quickly with modern dry yeast. My suggested fermentation profile for this recipe is 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit, which will result in a nice clean and neutral end result, allowing for all of the hop and malt flavours to shine. This will likely be finished within 7 days. The very next step is concerning the dry hop additions, which are now shown on screen. Add your dry hops when you are between 5 to 10 gravity points away from your predicted final gravity. I have tried all methods of dry hopping, but frankly nothing so far has had as good results, and there is no need to buy a book either. The very most important thing here is to keep things clean and sanitary, so here is a guide to doing that in a way that has never failed me so far in hundreds of brews. In this example I'm going to use a hop sock, but the procedure is similar with other container types. This starts with boiling the bag. I strongly recommend doing this no matter if the bag has been previously used and cleaned or if it's a brand new one straight out of the packaging. I then add this bag into a clean container and add sanitizer as a further safeguard. This will be the same container that I used to load the hops into. After this point I then wash and sanitize my hands, and this is repeated if I need to touch the bag after touching anything that is not clean and sanitary. These are very important steps to avoid contamination, which is all too common when it comes to homebrewers making IPAs because of this step. I then carefully add the dry hops with the bag lining the container, being sure that nothing touches the bag except for the hops. Once you have loaded all of your hops into the bag, then be sure to tie a nice strong knot to keep all of the hops contained. This loosely fitting hop bag, so there is room to expand, can now be added into your fermenter. In terms of contact time, 3 days is usually going to be plenty, but 5 days is fine too. I would avoid times more than a week to avoid grassy off flavours though. Let's now take a look at the finished beer from this batch with the pour, and I will then take you through my own personal tasting notes. You can see that the pour is a light gold in colour, but once in the glass the end beer is a bright orange amber. I have not used any fining agents here whatsoever, but it has already started clearing naturally, so choose your own route here. This beer has been under 12 psi of pressure, which is 0.83 bars. I'm using this pressure for serving 2. The example you see here is at around the 4 weeks point from kegging, and the beer is conditioned very nicely in this time, but past versions have peaked at around the 6-week point. Let's now go through my tasting notes, starting with aroma. Aroma. The aroma found here is citrus and tropical with a fresh, slightly sweet, malty background with hints of pine and resin. Flavour. On entry, this one starts with citrus edge along with some tropical fruit, as well as orange as a leading flavour. In the middle there are some nice slight sweet malt flavours that are mostly caramel, along with a little bready background, which is rather nice. The finish has a touch of sweetness to it, along with some pine and resinous qualities in the background that blend in very nicely. As you get down the glass, I usually find some nice berry flavours mixed in, as well as lemon and grapefruit. I'm a big fan of American amber ales due to their balance between malt and hops that you do not get with IPA styles. Whilst I love any of the hoppy styles, I find writing American amber recipes more fulfilling, as they provide a greater challenge to get right, but once right they are always just as enjoyable in the glass too. This example pushes the hops element further with a nice balance from the grain bill too. My final impression of this beer is that it is a very satisfying American amber that offers a great deal in the flavour department from both hops and malt to provide a beer that proves to be more interesting and flavourful than the average hoppy offering. So there you have it. Do let myself and the community know what you think of this video, and then later on, once you have brewed this recipe, your own tasting notes. I do hope that you found this video useful, informative and interesting. If so, why not consider liking and subscribing? For further support, you can join the channel's Facebook group, and if you would like to support the channel, then check out the channel's merchandise store, as all profits go back into the channel. Until next time, happy brewing!